Hello, everyone. Claire Harrington with Social Tables here, and this is our final piece of our video series with Greg Bogue, who is the experience architect at Maritz Travel. Greg and my CEO, Don Berger of Social Tables, will be hosting a live webinar on July 23rd titled The Application of Experience Design at Your Event. And Greg has kindly been writing a blog series for us as we get prepared for the webinar so that folks have some background before they jump in. And today we're going to be discussing his final blog, which is going to be titled Novelty, Simplicity, Memory, and Emotional Intensity. So Greg, thank you again for being back with us today, and we'll get right into it.
Sounds good.
All right. So this is your last post on experiential design. Are there any other principles that are important in effectively designing meetings and events that we haven't touched on yet?
Sure. In our first video, I brought up the whole idea of novelty, and just to touch on that just a little bit more, I think the most important thing that we need to do is kind of come at it from a point of view of interrupting the ordinary. How do we disturb what people are expecting? Interrupt that and really challenge the brain to think beyond what they know or what they feel is coming. So that's just another real neat way of looking at a novelty. So that's a good one. The other thing that I really like is this whole idea of simplicity. We know that the brain loves simplicity. And in fact, neuroscientists, they're saying that our brain is much like a value shopper. And it's always evaluating the amount of energy it takes to understand a message. And if it's too much, it gets distracted and says, enough, I don't get it. So I think we oftentimes overcomplicate our messages. And if we can just really understand that the brain likes a simple message, I think we would do ourselves a huge service.
So you're talking about communicating with people the same way we like to be communicated with, just very straight and to the point.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Another neat idea is this whole thing of memory. There's a very interesting TED Talk by Daniel Kahneman, and he lays out this idea that we as people have two selves: the experiencing self and the remembering self. And those two things are actively incorporating into our memories, right? The thing that I love about what he says is that human beings have a bias for intense periods of brief joy, especially at the end. So important that we close a session, close a meeting, close an all event with a really strong closing and really bring it home. Another really important point.
So that's interesting. So I guess I would ask, a lot of events do have these great closing speakers and final plenaries. Is there something to be said for the individual events that people attend as well? The smaller meetings that happen before the large plenaries, the breakouts?
I think so. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a huge show to close it. What if we met people at the airport from an event and shook their hand and said, thanks for coming?
Absolutely. That's
right?
Amazing. Such a simple idea.
Yeah, it's something that we don't do, but I think each one of us would really like that sense of importance from an executive meeting me at the airport. That never happens.
No, absolutely. And that is at the emotional level that I think you're also speaking about in this blog, correct? The emotional intensity and how that impacts design?
Absolutely. And when we think about emotional intensity, we're really talking about those drives that we as human beings have. And Dean Noria from the Harvard Business School and a gentleman by the name of Paul Lawrence really presented this theory for human behavior that says we're motivated by four distinct drives: the drive to acquire, the drive to defend, the drive to bond, and the drive to create. And all of those drives have intense emotions underneath it. And it's our responsibility as designers to begin activating those emotions. A really interesting point is if we can get somebody to say it's mine, they will defend it. How can we get our guests that come to events to start talking about that meeting or event or trip in terms of mine? That's mine. If we can do that, we've emotionally connected with them. Another really good example, a really great idea is to think about your event and what is the narrative that you want your guests to be saying once they leave. Write that narrative and then design to deliver that.
Again, I think that goes back to what we spoke about before about really getting out of the weeds and focusing on what you're truly trying to do with events. So it's very fascinating. Overall, we've discussed the concept of using neuroscience to inform meetings and event design. How do all of these principles lead back to successful design?
Well, I think really it all comes back to putting people in the center, putting the guest in the center of your design efforts. And as we learn more and understand more about what people want, what they value, what's important to them, and design that into their experiences, we can't help but create a richer, more emotional connection to them.
Absolutely. Well, Greg, you're doing a wonderful job. I really appreciate your time today and all of your blog posts, and looking forward to the webinar. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Bye.